Down to 6 flags in Andromeda. This is a really big turn for Ermor, as we're seeing everything he has come up against Helheim, and something just crazy happened with Atlantis, not something I expected. We'll start with this huge battle between Ermor and Helheim. Now, this did happen in Beatra. I'm not sure how these mechanics work exactly. If there was like a 50-50 chance of the battle happening in either Helheim or Beatra, I think that's how it works. Either way, it happening in Beatra is not good for Ermor, because that means he is coming up against more of Helheim's forces than he would have if the battle was in Helheim. So here's just about everything that Ermor has left. Pretty hefty line of Astadi in the front, some whites on a flank, a few long dead behind them. These are the very good EA Ermor long dead that come with what is essentially Legionnaire equipment. 2 boxes of Equite on attack rear commands on the flanks. Big box of Astadi behind his mages to help protect from any attack rear commands that Helheim might be using. And then he's got quite a few Augur Elders, not a lot of gems being passed around between them. In fact, I'm not seeing any gems actually, so not too likely to be seeing any powerful fire, air, or death spells from these. He does have a gray one with a few death gems and another one with some astral pearls, and then a whole bunch of augurs back here. I presume most of these are going to be acting as communion slaves. Helheim, on the other hand, has brought a whole bunch of corpse constructs, acting as a big cushion out front. Lots of long dead horsemen surrounding all of his mages, and he's got a couple of big lines, looks like double rank of Hellheerdings. Got some randed kitted Van Jarls here and there. There's a Bane Lord back here. Some mercenary war shamblers in front of his mages, as well as a few storm demons. These are pretty powerful units. They get more powerful in storms. They can fly in storms. They're ethereal and they throw lightning bolts. Helheim also has his Pretender here. His Pretender is wielding a Coral Blade to help improve his hit points. Got a Dragon Helmet, which is just a nice piece of equipment. Gives him some fire resistance, morale, dark vision, pretty nice protection cost. He's wearing Armor of Twisting Thorns. This boosts both nature and blood magic. Some other nice things like PR. It's cursed, so he can't take it off. Amulet of Anti-Magic significantly increases magic resistance, and a Rabbitfoot Charm, which gives him Twist Fate. So now it's a little bit hard to see how many cavalry mages there are here because of the glamour, but he's got a decent amount. Some are kitted, some are not. Hangadrot holding a skull staff. I mean, when it comes to units, they're not ridiculously mismatched. Like, Helheim has a lot more, and they're undead, but in general, they are inferior units to the Hastati. They both have fielded a decent amount of Sacred Cavalry, so I think a large portion of this battle is going to come down to the magic that comes onto the field. Though there's quite a bit going on in this battle. Helheim is casting Curse of Stones. That's going to significantly increase the fatigue on Ermor's units. He's got Storm Up and Darkness. Darkness is going to affect the Hastati quite a bit. Most everything else on this battlefield has Spirit Sight, but the Hastati do not. And Storm is also going to negatively affect the accuracy on these javelins, as well as some of the spells that are being cast, including Helheim's. I'm going to pause for a second because there's a lot going on here. Helheim has some full-size air elementals coming down on Ermor. Air elementals do get heightened stats in a storm. They trample, they're ethereal, they're a big pain in the butt. You'll see that even with 15 shock resistance, Equite are still managing to be stunned by thunder strikes. It is a very powerful evocation. We've seen some shadow blasts from Helheim's side. We have not seen shadow blasts from Ermor's side. The only mage that would be able to cast it is this gray one here. Maybe it will throw a few out. But though Shadow Blast wouldn't do anything to Helheim's undead units, it could damage these Hellheerdings quite a bit. What Ermor is casting is Falling Fires, Astral Fires, Bane Fire, all kinds of fire. And Helheim has put Howl onto the field. So there's also going to be some wolves trickling in on the side. So a lot of this battle at the moment is Sacred versus Sacred, though Helheim does have a lot more units here, which is help adding to the, like if you look on the corners, like right here, Ermor is much more likely to take harassment penalties, and these units are also receiving more attacks due to being surrounded compared to, say a unit like these two whites right here who have allied units on either side of them and behind them. So even though undead aren't particularly powerful units, this is where numbers comes into play. There's some magma eruption going on. You might as well as here's Flame Eruption. Pretty big casting of Magma Eruption right there. Knocked out pretty much everything that was standing there, including some of Ermor's troops, I think. Ermor's rapidly losing field presence. We can see how much damage this Flame Eruption and Magma Eruption is doing to... Yeah, look at all that. All those corpse constructs got wiped out. Helheim does have some fire resistance on his bless, only 5 though, so this flame eruption is breaking through on his Hellherdings. But now it's just down to Ermor's mages, and they disappeared really quickly as soon as the Hellherdings came in, as well as all these evocations coming down, lots of Thunderstrike, which has very far range, Air Elemental coming down, standing in the way of retreating units. Almost everything got cleaned up, which wouldn't matter anyway because his units didn't have anywhere to retreat to. The end result is Ermor loses everything. So the question is then, what did Helheim lose? Out of his mages, he lost almost nothing. 1 Adept of the Iron Order. We'll see his Hangedrots got a lot of kills. I'm not sure if this is Shadow Blast or Thunderstrike. It might depend on the randoms that they had. His Vanjarls, probably a mix of Thunderstrike and the fact that some of them were kitted to fight. He lost over half of his Corpse Constructs, 2/3 of his Long Dead Horsemen, 12 Hellherdings, and then just some random units on top of that. The Storm Demons actually did a lot of damage, as you can see, which is a good demonstration of why these are one of the most popular blood summons when it comes to units. So overall, Helheim actually didn't lose a whole lot in this fight. He was able to stop Ermor just short of his capital, which I'm sure is a bummer for Ermor, and managed to do so with minimal losses. Though he did lose a huge chunk of undead here. And now Ermor is reduced to 1.5 provinces. He pushed a Mound King and the Mound King's buddy off of Pantocrator's bounty here, and is now moving out with a few Hastati and some Blackhawks, just to harass Helheim as long as possible while he's still alive. Cornelius is just sitting here researching. Looks like some conjuration. Now, there's definitely some stuff that Ermor could have been casting had he given more gems to his mages. Like, we didn't see Wailing Winds go up, even though he had the cross path for it. Wrathful Skies might have been funny, though it might have damaged him just as much, if not more, than Helheim. We didn't see any Shadow Blast casting from him, and most of his research was focused in Evocation. If, for example, he had prioritized maybe Conjuration 5 over Evocation 6, he would have been able to field a lot of elementals in a battle like that, both air and fire elementals. But it's not a huge deal. Ermor knew that this game was lost for him anyway, and he's just off harassing Helheim at this point, just thinking about some things that could have been done differently. But we'll talk even more about that when Ermor's flag disappears. Caelum has just received a message from Rus. Rus is pretty much declaring that he's lost, they'll fight as long as possible, and is encouraging Caelum in hypothetical wars against Hinnom and Helheim. He's been trading with gems with Atlantis. We have another casting of Celestial Yazad. He's gotten another Astral 4 commander out of this. A bit of a bummer because I think he really is probably looking for the Nature Mage that you get with this spell, but still, very powerful Astral Mage, not a terrible thing to have lying around. He's got his other one out here sight searching. And now he's calling Yada, which is a very similar spell. It's just that the mages that you summon with it are more oriented toward death instead of astral. With the Call Yada spell, I imagine the one that is most prized for him would be the Blood Random, as you can get a fairly powerful Blood Mage out of this spell. But it looks like for now, he's only going to be able to comfortably cast it once without just eating all of his fire gems or something horrible like that. Caelum is getting a lot of sight searching done, being very thorough about this. Just looking around his provinces, you see he's done quite a bit of sight searching in many paths. He's doing some Winter Wolves summoning with Juloya here, so I'm going to check some of those out next turns. I think that's actually a pretty cool spell. And he's got a pretty high research speed going on right now. You see he's got tons and tons of researchers. Could use a few more Owl Quills, but with what he's got going on, he's about to hit Conjuration 7. Doesn't have anything queued up afterward, but at least that research will go further into Conjuration, and Conjuration 8 is something that you generally want eventually with Caelum, though that is more oriented toward a longer game. Unfortunately, Caelum is starting to look at about the peak of his power. And what Caelum is good at is throne rushing. This is not an ideal map and throne situation for throne rushing with Caelum. So for him to have any chance in this game, he's going to have to look more to the long term. He's going to have to get some territory out of this mess of a war that's going on to the south of his territory. And Helheim, right after swallowing up Ermor, is turning his attention toward Rus. Rus cast Call of the Winds here in Ramir, and he managed to fend them off with some ugly-ass fish people. Didn't have any problem taking care of these birds. He's got a lot of Vanjarls coming through. You'll notice that in some of these places, Rus has 10 PD down. It's not really making a difference versus, say, like 6 PD or even 1 PD when it comes to contested territory. Just something to keep in mind, there's like 30 or 40 gold that he did not need to spend on province defense as far as what the effective result is. This Vanjarl here is wearing a lightweight scale mail, which is very cheap for Helheim to make. Burning Pearl, which increases attack skill, a little bit of fire resistance, and a Dancing Trident, which gives him an extra attack. Cast Air Shield, Mist Form, blesses himself, Holy Avenger and then moves into melee. There are a couple of Great Bears here, though there's nothing here from Rus to bless them, making them significantly less powerful than they would usually be. So this Vanyaral did get his glamour popped, took a little hit from something, decent amount of fatigue, but overall was able to take out 10 PD without incurring any afflictions. If anything, is just getting his experience up, making him faster. Heroic quickness, that's really nice. Combat speed 45. Now at some point he is going to have to do something about this. This is what Rus has moving around in the middle of his territory. A lot of bears, as well as a few Chud skin shifters behind them. At the moment, Helheim is mostly ignoring this, just taking provinces that Rus takes, using Vanyaral thugs moving in behind this army. But there's 50 sacreds here that are going to have to be dealt with sooner or later. Rus has also sent out a small raiding party to recapture some of what Helheim has taken. Helheim PD does come with Van Heerses, so it is a little tough in that regard. It's kind of like having a little thug. Something that I think it makes just having one PD sometimes really nice with Helheim, but that is nowhere near enough to deal with a bunch of Chud skin shifters. And we'll go ahead and check out another Vanyaral fight, just because this one is pretty deep in Rus's territory. Wearing a dragon helmet, a dancing trident, and a stone bird. Those things got 4 attacks, which is pretty wild. Enormous strength is its heroic ability. As it gets experience, he's just going to get more muscular. Birds come down and do interrupt him in the middle of his casting. He does finally get Mist Form off though. Kills most of the birds, drive off the cavalry. You'll see all these red numbers coming up with how much attacks he's able to do. It's ridiculous. Gets the rest of his script off and chases off Rus's PD while it routes. Hildur has gained a heroic ability this turn. Heroic Endurance, giving him 2 reinvigoration. Helheim does not have reinvigoration on his bless. As for movements, Helheim is putting a stop at whatever's going on in Pantocrator's Bounty. There's really not a lot going on here. He's still sieging down Ermor's capital, and he's moving a lot around in these regions here. I believe he's anticipating an attack from Atlantis. Quite a bit on Summer Bay once again. Lots of rituals and construction going on this turn. He's making winged shoes. Cavalry commanders cannot wear these as they have no boot slot, but it can definitely help things like Svartalf's and his Frost Father get around, who does have a boot slot open. With his Frost Father, he's making a brazen vessel. This is a blood booster item, and he's moving out with a feeble-minded Svartalfa. This one is twice born. Presume he's trying to get it killed on Russ's army. But the idea here seems to be that Atlantis is about to attack Helheim. At least from Helheim's perspective. We will see if that's true when we get to Atlantis' turn. Rus just got a couple of research levels of thaumaturgy. He can now cast Mind Burn, which can give his astromages something to do off script, presuming they're in communions. He's still staring down this very large army from Helheim that's moving closer and closer to his fort complex around his capital. Wow, look at that commander. Lasted a long time. And here's a casting of Call of the Winds that actually managed to take out Hinam's commander on his province defense. He had 10 PD here. Now, I wouldn't rely on Call of the Winds taking out 10 PD. It usually takes out 6 PD, but 10 is a different story. It did manage to this time around because it took out the commander relatively quickly. And now, other than moving this army randomly around Helheim's territory, looks like Rus might be retreating into the refuge of his forts. He is summoning a lot of bears, still getting a ton of nature gems. Do keep in mind he does have Mother Oka. 2 castings of Summon Bears on his capital and another one on Midland. He's got 3 mages patrolling on one of his provinces, all scripted to cast Power of the Spheres, summon Lesser Fire Elemental, and then Swarm. Could definitely do some damage to a Vanyaral if it was to venture onto the Dawnland. And he's making Swords of Swiftness with his Pretender. This is a 2-attack sword. It's pretty expensive in gems, and I think more expensive in mage turns because this is a mage that researches at 52 with its Owl Quill. So hopefully he has a good plan with those. He is on his way to Conjuration 5, but at 200 RP a month, it's going to be a little bit slow to get there. He is recruiting Chud Berserkers on both of these forted provinces. I'm not sure if that is the best priority with his gold. I think in general, I would rather have a Russian Wizard than 4 of these Chud Berserkers. I feel like he's more likely to be able to do damage on the battlefield with a Wizard, and it'll also help his research ramp a little bit. You know, it could just help him maybe at least have a foot in this game for longer. And you also never know when there's a restabilization opportunity. Say if Helheim and Hinam suddenly break into the war, they have a huge front. You never know what might happen, and that could give Rus a chance to spring back. Hinam has just reached Construction 6. This is a very important goal that opens up a ton of magic items. Lots of blood hunting going on. He did get a free laboratory this turn, as well as a black steel helmet. This was way down here in Lithia. Not a bad place to get a lab. It wouldn't be a terrible place to build a fortress. Has a decent amount of recruitment, lots of neighboring territory that he owns. constructions, so it might be a nice place for some further infrastructure in the future. Black steel helmets are also a pretty nice free magic item to get. I mean, they are a trinket, you can make them at construction 0. They're cheap, but they're still just a nice magic item. 24 protection without any penalties is super great. Now that he's construction 6, he's making multiple water bracelets. These are very cheap water boosters. He's making armor of knights, which is really good armor, probably for his Melkarts, which he's continuing to recruit. Lightless lanterns is something else. It looks like he's churning out en masse. These are research items. Starshine Skullcap. There's a ton of stuff he's making now that he's at construction 6. Pretty much all of his fire random armies are making lightless lanterns. He's going to significantly ramp his research, which is already really good. Wow, alteration 8 after he gets enchantment 6. Oh, looks like he forgot to do something with his Baal. That's a bummer. I think with the Boots of the Messenger, he may have been intending to move it maybe down this direction. Yeah, it's got some script on it. And he's just making this army bigger and bigger as it approaches Russ's fort complex. I presume he's probably going to move on to Russ's capital. Maybe he'll try to take out Midland first. He could certainly pop any of these forts in a single turn with this huge army. Will be exciting to see this thing further in action, as well as his Melkarts that are roaming around down here. Thought he had another one somewhere now. I can't seem to find it. Maybe not. And Atlantis has received some news from Caelum saying that Ermor is just about dead. He sees that Rus and Helheim are fighting. He doesn't know what's going on with Rus and Henom somehow, even though Henom has a bunch of land like right to the south of him that used to be Russ's. Atlantis just reached Conjuration 7, which is pretty nice. The main thing that this is giving him are the elemental spam spells. This spawns up a whole bunch of medium-sized elementals, more depending on the level of the caster. Otherwise, Atlantis doesn't have much of the paths that are really relevant for this level of research and conjuration. And like I said, Atlantis did something I didn't expect this turn. Maybe some of you would be able to guess what that is. I definitely wouldn't have been able to. Well, let's take a peek. Look at this. Atlantis is moving all of this right up onto the beach in the middle of Caelum's territory. And it looks like he has more coming behind that. So this is looking like there's about to be a huge fight between Atlantis and Caelum. But I think Atlantis might have in mind here, given this movement over here that's also involving a ton of mages, Atlantis might be going for a throne rush. He already has 3 thrones. It's 5 to win. There's a throne over here in the middle of Helheim's territory. And then there's Caelum's throne right here, which does look nice, big, and juicy. Now, there are some problems with Atlantis' script here. For one thing, he's summoning water power, which is not going to do anything on land. Lots of numbness casting, which is kind of a strange choice, given that he could be bringing a lot of power to the table with elementals, though maybe he's saving his gems so he gets further inland. He does have this scout sneaking along with a whole bunch of water gems. A couple scouts, actually. Wow. Some living water casting down here. These are likely to be ice elementals. Yeah, they're going to be ice elementals, given they're coming to Caelum's territory. In general, I would personally consider water elementals to be stronger in most situations than ice elementals. This is going to be pretty crazy. I'm imagining this thing is likely targeting this throne province right here. So we're going to see what Caelum's response is going to be. I have no idea what to expect from this emerging conflict here. This has been turn 42 of Andromeda. Ermor is just about done, and Atlantis is looking like he might try to run away with the game here. We'll see what Caelum does to try and stop that in the next episode.